You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your host, Keith Wheeler.
And Nuria Corby.
What are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today we're going to talk about how to handle criticism. And I'm sure we both have handled a fair bit of criticism in the past, haven't we?
Yes. Criticism can come from so many different areas. You can have criticism from your peers, criticism from your customers, and so there's a lot of different areas that you can get criticism from, and it can be super overwhelming, especially when you're just starting out. It can be a huge deterrent. I've seen so many people that are already introverts when going into, like, if you're an author or just self-publisher in general, you're already introverted, and so just a little bit of pushback can be enough to make you quit. And that's really sad, because that's there's so much potential out there that I really think that an episode like this that gives people one understanding that criticism will happen. It's not anything that you did wrong. It's or anything about you personally. When people are criticizing, if they're criticizing correctly, they're criticizing your product. And so taking away that personal feeling from it can help people understand better. So I'm hoping that that's one of the big takeaways that they get from today's episode.
Yeah, that's absolutely the best way of looking at it. It's hard because, like you said, it's one of the things, if you're starting something and you get criticism from somewhere, it kind of seems bigger than it actually is as well, right? Because you are taking it personally. You're kind of, it's something that you're just starting. You don't feel you're most confident,
right?
And it really undermines your confidence sometimes. I think it kind of depends on a few things as well. It depends whether the criticism is justified or not. It depends who the criticism comes from as well. It kind of makes a big difference if it's somebody you rate highly. If it comes from someone you think, it doesn't matter, then it doesn't really, it doesn't affect you as much. But there's all different things that can affect how you take criticism. And it's always a good idea to remember that it's not personal. I know some criticism can be personal, but then it says something more about the person criticizing than about yourself. But yeah, it's always harsh when you're getting criticized. There's always a part of you that thinks, oh no, what am I? Is everything else that I'm doing wrong as well? Because you're not only just taking that particular thing, it makes you feel rubbish all round, really. And I think we've all gone through this, and luckily I think I'm kind of at a point where I recognize good criticism for what it is, and I recognize criticism that I think is more like their personal problem rather than mine. But it's it's a tricky one. I don't know, what kind of advice can we give people? It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, and like you said, especially when you're first starting out, you're already a little bit reluctant, probably, and so just a little bit of negative feedback could be all it takes to kind of push you and repel you from what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is kind of what you were saying before, which is consider the source. Consider the source of the criticism, and consider the context of it. It are 99% of the time they're going to be criticizing your product, not you personally. And so like I said, keeping that in mind. If they are criticizing you, if they're saying things like, you're stupid, or you're, you don't know what you're doing, or whatever, again, that goes to what you were saying, is consider the source. Then it's more about them than about you. And so those literally, and this just comes with having been doing this for years, and it's not limited to just, books or business in general. I mean, just in life, you're gonna get just nasty people,
Yeah.
people that the only joy they get is in bringing other people down. Their life is so bad, they feel so bad, and they want to
Yeah.
make other people feel that way too, so they don't feel alone,
Mm.
which is sad.
Yeah.
But, again, so I would say consider the source. If it is something that is targeting you specifically, then I would just say, I personally, when that happens to me, I feel sorry for the person.
Yeah.
But I don't pay any mind to what the context of it is.
Mm.
Once I read it that one time and I'm like, okay, clearly it's not about what I presented. It's not about my book or my business or whatever. Then yeah, basically I ban it from my brain. I
Yeah.
don't pay attention to it. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing I would say looking at the criticism, consider the source. You know, Now if there's someone that like you said is someone that's been in the industry or someone that is in the know, then you're going to take that with a little bit more heart. But also typically those people, they'll be more targeted towards your product and not towards you.
Mm. I think that's very true. I think the people that I tend to listen to, if they have any criticism, I take it on board. They tend to be people who give constructive criticism rather
Right.
than destructive, if that exists.
Right.
They
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they try and help you. And I think if criticism is designed to help you, that is a really good way to assess whether this is criticism that you can take on board or whether it's just their own personal problem.
Right.
I think you can usually tell when the person doing the criticizing is angry, maybe, or has something on their minds that has nothing to do with your product or with what you're doing,
Mhm.
but they're letting off steam, and you can get that when you have products that you're selling. You can get that, especially on Etsy. Wow, that's a that's a
Yeah.
funny platform to be on for feedback. And I've been lucky, but when I go into the Etsy forums or the Etsy groups on Facebook, and the stories that you see in there of how customers react to them, I think, oh my God, this is not a way to behave in public, because
Right.
you have to remember that if you get bad feedback, for example, or a bad review, the way you respond to that review is seen by the person who looks at the reviews. So,
Mhm.
of course, if we are publishing books on Amazon, we don't get that opportunity to reply to feedback. But if you have a shop anywhere else, on Etsy, on eBay, on Amazon, or whichever platform, and you can reply to feedback, then you can always make the reply so that it can even bring in more customers. Because
Right.
if they see that you address the problem in a professional way, then you've won other people over. And I think it's not so different in life either. If you're taking criticism about whatever you're doing, whatever your business is, yes, it depends on the person who gives the criticism. It depends on whether it's constructive criticism.
Mhm.
It also depends on how you're feeling at the time. You might be
Right.
going through something. You might be going through a health problem or whatever it is. That can affect how you perceive that criticism as well. So I think the best advice is to not react straight away and to just give it some time and think about it, sleep on it, I would say, and then review it again. But yeah, it's one of those things. It can really throw you, but if you are confident and if you're kind of, I think that is the best way to put it. Really, if you're confident in your product and you are trying the best, you're trying the best for your customers, then you shouldn't really get any criticism that's harmful to you. It might be something that can improve your business or
Right.
but I don't see that it will affect you in a negative way if you've done your best. That is probably how I see it mostly. If I do something and I do it well, and I know I've done the best for my customers, whatever criticism I get, it's then easy to see whether it's
Right.
justified or not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And part of it is getting back to what you were saying before. It's, dissecting the review or dissecting the feedback that you're getting. You know,
Yeah.
is that, what exactly are they saying?
Mm.
Are they, is what they're saying fair? I mean, is it, especially if you're just starting out, and even if you've been, I mean, I've been doing this for, over 8 years, and, there are still times I get feedback that is constructive, and I can learn from it. And
Mm.
so, again, considering the source, dissecting what they're saying, and then, taking it with a grain of salt, and understanding, is this something, one, that I agree with? Are they bringing up valid points? You know, or, is this something maybe I hadn't thought of before? I mean, there are criticisms that I get that are completely valid that I don't do, because at the end of the day, it's still my business.
Mm.
I can still, take from it what I want and either use it or don't use it.
Mm.
But like, I'll get criticisms from, it could be from a peer, like in a Facebook group or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll send an example of one of your covers, and you'll ask people for their feedback.
Mm.
That's the other thing is if you ask for feedback, you can't get upset if you get feedback, I mean, you're asking
Yeah.
for it. And I think that's a good thing to ask for feedback,
Mm.
because there's majority of the time there's not one way to do something.
Mm.
And even though I've been doing this for, 8 years, there are people out there that have been doing it longer than me,
Mm.
you know, that can give good insight
Mm.
into something that I hadn't thought of.
Mm.
That said, there's also people who may just be starting out. And I know when I first started out, I didn't feel like I had any right to give people feedback,
Mm.
because I didn't know what I was
Yeah.
talking about. I've only just started doing this. But you actually bring a completely different perspective
Yeah.
because you are new to it. So
Mm.
we just as human beings have a tendency to be creatures of habit. And so there might be something I'm doing with, in this example of my cover, that I've always done. Doesn't mean it's necessarily the best way to do it.
Mm.
So you having a fresh eye and a fresh view on things, because you just started out, you might have a great, suggestion that I never even thought of.
Mm.
So, when it comes to criticism, both getting it and giving it, take into account, again, who it's coming from, like we talked about before, but also don't just, ignore people just because they just started out, because
Mm.
they may give you a fresh, view on things that you hadn't thought of before.
Yeah. That is actually a really good point. But you made me think there when you said if you're asking in a group, for example, you're asking for feedback on something, don't be, you're going to get
Yeah.
feedback and it might not be
Right.
good. But I think there's a big difference in giving feedback and being rude to
Right.
people,
Right.
because I see that quite often in the groups where somebody has just made their first book or whatever, and they're really
Mhm.
proud of it, and it's not the best, and you can see it's not the best from our point of view because we've been doing it for much
Right.
longer. There's a way of giving that feedback. You can't turn around and say, oh, that looks a bit rubbish, or that, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't, because
Right.
that is not a way to help them. I think people have to think before they give feedback and think, well, how am I helping this person, rather than how am I giving my opinion? We
Right.
don't want your opinion. We want your help. That's what
Right.
they're basically saying, and I
Yeah.
think there's only one thing that I really dislike in life, and that is people not being kind, people
Yeah.
being, sometimes you can do it without meaning to, but
Mhm.
I find that a lot of people are deliberately unkind because they want to voice their opinion,
Right.
and they need to rethink that, because your opinion at the end of the day isn't what people were asking for. They were asking for help in
Right.
improving
Right.
their book, and they were also asking for support, and it would be nice to list the things that you do like about the book, or that just to start
Mhm.
on a positive note rather than
Right.
go in there straight with
Yeah.
a negative. I know that some people might think, well, I rather get the truth, I rather people are honest with me, and I'm not saying the opposite. I'm just saying, be honest, but be honest in a way that helps the person rather than puts
Right.
them down. And I don't know, would you agree with that? Or do you think I'm being a bit?
No, I agree. Matter of fact, I just jotted it down in our little Excel spreadsheet we've got of topics that, a great idea for another episode would be how to give proper feedback and criticism.
Yeah.
Because there is kind of I don't want to say a science to it, but it's something that people in this day and age, kind of sometimes need to be reminded on,
Yeah.
like you said, you can give feedback and even criticisms without
Mm.
being critical,
Mm.
without being
Absolutely.
harsh about it.
Mm.
And one thing, it's one of the many downsides to the pandemic and 2020 in particular is, people spent so much time isolated that
Yeah.
there are a lot more people out there that I've run into in the past few years
Mm.
that have forgotten how to be kind, how
Yeah.
to talk to another human being, respectfully, whether you've got even if what they put up there is like there's nothing good to say about it,
Mm.
really. You can still say, "Hey, I can tell that you tried on this. Here are some
Mm.
suggestions." Again, they don't want your opinion. They want your advice, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
And so, advice doesn't come with hard words,
Mm.
opinions come with hard words.
Yeah.
Advice comes with what can I do to make it better? Here's what you can do. Here's what you can do. And so it's more of giving me information. And so conversely, when it comes to receiving criticism, you need to understand that and understand that
Yeah.
not everybody's coming from the same place you are, both, as experience wise as well as emotionally. And so again, going back to what I was saying before, consider the source, read, dissect the, you know, the critical statements you're getting and pull from that what you can, and this goes from not only your peers, like I said, in Facebook groups and things like that, but also from your customers.
Yeah.
You're gonna, if you're publishing on Amazon, people can leave reviews, and
Mm.
a lot, many times they can be hurtful.
Mm.
Especially if you start getting those 1 and 2 star reviews. I will tell you, I promise you, you will get a 1 star review.
Mm.
At some point in your career,
Mm.
you will get a 1 or 2 star review. It's just inevitable. You
Yeah.
know, I've got 1 and 2 star reviews on books that, have hundreds of reviews, and the overall is a 4.8. I still have 1 star reviews,
Mm.
and again, it goes back to what I was saying before. When you read those reviews, understand that if they're criticizing you personally,
Mm.
ignore it. That talks more about them than it does about you.
Yeah.
But again, they could be giving. I love reading my 1 and 2 star reviews now. I actually, and we've talked about this in other episodes, I love reading my competition's 1 and 2 star reviews even better, because that's how I get better.
Yeah.
That's how I'm able to put out a better product.
Yeah.
Because, if they say, "Oh, it was great, but blah blah blah,"
Yeah.
I pay attention to that
Yeah.
but part. I pay attention to,
Mm.
what wasn't up to par, what wasn't what you were looking for.
Mm.
And with Amazon, it could be something as simple as, the product looked beat up by the time it got here. That has nothing to do with
Yeah.
you. That's
Absolutely.
completely on Amazon, because
Mm.
Amazon's one of the few places that still does not use corrugated cardboard to ship their books,
I know.
and they're one of the few, if not the only ones that don't. But
Mm.
yeah, so again, whether it's, somebody on social media, and if you're in a group. Now, if you're in a group and all you're getting is that kind of negativity, I my initial response to that is find a better group.
Get out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get out the
But
group.
because any too much negativity is not good for anybody's mentality, and then because then you're going to start criticizing everything you do, and then you end up taking longer to create things because you're second guessing everything.
Mm.
And also just know that just because the only thing there people are experts on is their own opinions. And so everybody's
Yeah.
an expert of their own opinion. So don't take what they say as, as doctrine, as the Bible for publishing or the Bible for business,
Mm.
even if they've been doing it for 20 or 30 years. Take it, take the criticism and look at it and see what you can pull from it that's actually going to be beneficial to you and to your business. And then everything else, and I know it's easier said than done, but everything else just ignore.
Yeah.
Just focus on, I don't want to say put focus on the positive, because the negatives are very helpful too, but focus on the positive feedback, the feedback that is positive to you, that's beneficial to your business.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And that's not to say, like you just said, it's not that you you don't just ignore the negatives.
Right.
You do take them on board, and I'm all for asking people their honest opinions, and I don't want people to lie to me and just tell me I'm great when I'm not. So
Right.
that's not really, but there's a way of saying things, and there's also, I don't know, but some people enjoy the negativity. They enjoy drama, especially in Facebook groups and
Yeah.
Facebook pages. And that is something that I like to stay away from, because, and I usually shut it down quickly in my own groups when I see it. So I don't like that part of the human mentality, because that's what it is really. And I know there are some people who, when they give their opinion, they can sound quite harsh. And I know there's rare people actually that have that sort of very direct approach, and they don't mean to be rude, but it just sometimes sounds rude. But you can usually tell the difference. You can tell when it's somebody that always speaks like that. They're always very direct, and they tell you how they see things. And that I can excuse. That is fine. They're being honest, they're being themselves. But
Right.
there's always, that other side of human beings that love the drama, and they like to be, because it makes them feel better. And it's in
Right.
those cases that I think, if you come across that, just leave the group, or just, block whoever is, because you can still be in a good group and not like one particular person in the group. So
Right.
you do have the ability to block those people, and you can carry on with the rest of the people. But yeah, there is we're not all diplomats. We can
Yeah.
all make a mistake sometimes and say things that we don't mean. So it's just that in the kind of business we're in, it's highlighted when you receive criticism.
Right.
But yeah, in everyday life, I think being in the kind of business we're in, you probably find that as well, that if it comes from a family member, how do you deal with that? I'm lucky that most people are very supportive. But it's quite interesting, because my husband will tell me what he thinks of something. And if it's rubbish, he'll say so. And the funny
Right.
thing is, I don't take that as a negative. I find that quite helpful, because I know he's
Right.
not being unkind. He's actually trying to help. So I find it, it's not always difficult to hear. Sometimes hearing a negative or hearing a criticism is a good thing. Do you have moments like that as well, or what?
I do. Well, and I think a lot of it comes down to what we were saying before about, consider the source. I mean,
Yeah,
you've known your husband for years, and so
yeah,
his personality and where he's coming from.
yeah,
Whereas if it's just some stranger in a group, it's a lot harder,
exactly. Yeah,
and but yeah, I mean, I love my mother-in-law, but man, she's Italian, and she's from New Jersey, and so she's very direct with what her opinion is.
and she
And
might be
so
listening.
yeah, I doubt it. But anyway, but yeah, so it's you have to take it again. I still, because I know her, I don't take it
Mm,
personally, but it really does come down to, consider the source, and
yeah,
consider where they're coming from. And I will be honest, I was actually going to say this earlier, is that's one reason why, honestly, I don't typically ask my family or friends for their input on my books and stuff,
mm,
because they're not my target audience.
that's
They're
very
they're not my
true.
target audience. They're
Yeah,
they're not my competitor, and so they don't understand my target audience. And so whether they are overly critical or overly kind, neither way is it going to help my business.
mm,
It's only going to help my business if somebody that understands either what my end users are looking for,
yeah,
or they are my end users. Only they are going to be able to really provide for me. And so that's one reason why I don't, like I said, I don't ask. I'll show my books around if people are interested, but I also don't push them. And that's something that I learned over the years. When I first got in this, I wanted to show every book I did, and people are just smile and wave, and you can tell if they're being sincere or not. And
Yes,
just because they're excited for you, that doesn't mean that they're really interested, you know? And
absolutely.
so and so it can be very easy to get overly confident because, well, everybody around me is telling me that that this cover looks great, and that's why it's really good to ask for critiques from people that aren't your friends and family. From
That,
and I guess the best way to put it are from people that aren't concerned with hurting your feelings, you know?
hmm
Um,
yeah,
and so, like, I mean, even you may have friends and family that, like you said, your husband, they're not really worried about hurting your feelings because they know that they're helping you.
yeah.
And so, and he's been helping you with your business. So he does understand your business. You know
This
what I mean?
is,
So,
yeah,
and,
this is the difference. Yeah,
and so, like my son, who's also, an author, I will bounce ideas off him. He's not in the niches that I'm in, but he knows enough about the business to give me some, proper
mm,
feedback. And that's one reason why it's really hard when it comes to criticism, is because majority of the time you're going to be getting criticisms from people you don't know. And so you
yeah,
don't have that inside information like you do,
mm,
where you know that, oh, they're just very direct, and so
yeah,
don't take it personally.
yeah,
If someone puts in a review or a comment on a post that I make, and they just say something like, "This is trash," that does not help me or my business at all. So I
mm.
ignore it. And does that mean it doesn't hurt? Actually, after this many years, it really doesn't. But I can see how it would.
Yeah,
but but just again, it's there's nothing to take from that statement. What's trash? The whole book, the cover, the title. Like, if you can't pull anything, if you can't extrapolate any valuable information out of that, then just
mm,
ignore it and move on. Because
yeah,
trust me, opinions are something everybody has. and
yeah,
so and so you're going to get ones that love your stuff, you're going to get ones that don't. And my goal for my products is to always get information from both sides, because if someone absolutely loves it and they give it a 5-star review, I,
mm,
I want to know why, because I want to know what I did right to continue to do. And again, conversely, if
yeah,
they don't like it and they give me a 1 or 2-star review, I want to know what I could have done better, so I know to do it on, to make my next set of products even better. If you take, the value that you get from the 1 and 2-star reviews mixed with the good things from 4s and 5s, you're only going to continue to get better as a business.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think when they don't say what's actually bugging them, like, when they say this is trash, what they're really saying is, I'm having a trash day,
Yeah,
because there's no, it's not to do with you really. But no, I think, it is good to listen to criticism. But I'm trying to sort of cut through what is important and what isn't,
right.
because we are going to get criticism. And I know that those people who are listening, who are just starting, for them, it's going to be a shock sometimes,
It
because it
is.
was
It
to
is.
me at the beginning. You think, oh, why is this person saying this? Why, and you learn to to realize when it's somebody that is just out to let off some steam, or when it's somebody who's actually giving their opinion on your product, or somebody who's trying to help you. So there's all different levels of criticism and how you can work with it.
Mhm.
So there's always something you can learn from it anyway,
Right.
whether it's about your business, your product, yourself, or them. So
Yeah.
it's something that you're going to get. So it's good to be prepared, I guess.
I agree. I think that's the biggest thing, is to understand going in that you're going to
Mm,
get, whether it's in a group or in reviews on Amazon or whatever, you're going to get negative reviews. It's going to happen. And, by being prepared for it, it won't hurt as much when you get them. I
yeah.
mean, and another thing that you can do is, especially if you're just starting out, if you get a criticism and you don't know how to take it, share that in a group. You know,
Mhm.
you can block out parts that you don't want people to see, you know, like
Yeah.
maybe if it says your title or whatever,
Mm.
um, and see what others in your business, um, in your industry, what they would do,
Yeah.
what they think you can extrapolate from that, and you know
Yeah.
what you can learn from it. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's something where it's kind of a hybrid where you know, you're actually asking opinions on someone else's opinion, someone else's comment,
That's very
and
true.
see what you can take from it. You know, again, especially if you're first starting out and you're like, okay, it's a 2-star review. It doesn't look like it's aimed towards me. It's aimed towards my product, but I don't know what to do with this information. You know, ask other people.
Absolutely.
And like I've said before, if you don't get feedback from, you know, your peers or whatever, or you don't get any positive feedback or uh, any constructive feedback, you know, if people just like ignore it, or you know that you're getting nothing but berated with negativity, then that's when I would say one is to, you know, look at other groups. And also, if you see one person that's just negative all the time, understand that if you especially if you're like in a Facebook group, you can DM the actual admin
Hmm.
and let them know that, you know, that this person is, and if they get enough complaints, then they will block that person, or
Yeah.
you, and then you can still, after you do that, you can still block that person like you said earlier. But
Hmm.
again, letting the admin know, because especially if you're in a large group, it's, you know, it's a lot harder for the admin to stay on top of these things. And I know this because I'm an admin for like 3 or 4 Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And so I try to stay on top of it, but there are many times that, you know, things slip through.
Mm. That's very true. And especially Facebook groups can be a little bit, if you know, because you said, you know, just take that criticism and ask in a Facebook group. That can work out great, but it can also backfire, because I've seen that
Right.
happening as well, where somebody has had this problem and they don't know how to deal with it. They're new to the business. They've posted it in a Facebook group. This is something that happens a lot in Etsy groups and on KDP groups as well, where they say, right, this is what they've said about it. What do you think? Where am I going wrong? And all of a
Hmm.
sudden, they're getting all these people adding to the criticism and being quite rude about it sometimes.
Yeah.
And that is where I think you know the kind of groups that where that happens,
Hmm.
and that is to me an indicator of, yeah, they have something going on in their lives
Right.
which
Right.
they're now sort of deflecting onto that poor person that's asked a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of that can happen, and it's really important to not take it personally, and to know that this is kind of normal as well. So
Hmm.
unfortunately, it shouldn't be. Um, but I think especially social media is not like talking face to face. When you talk
Right.
to a person face to face, you still have that filter of politeness, you know, which very often it gets lost in on social media. Sometimes people
Hmm.
are just not that polite to each other because they're just
Right.
sitting on a keyboard and they're not seeing you in front of
Right.
them. And sometimes also the written word is not always how people would say it. You know,
Hmm.
it's sometimes people write things that sound quite harsh, but really, if they was talking to you in their own voice, it wouldn't sound so harsh as it
Right.
does when it's written down. That's
Yeah.
another
You
thing
can't
to
get the
consider.
context. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I actually I've had that exact same discussion with my kids.
yeah,
That's why I don't like texting back and forth, because, you know,
yeah,
just you know, a one word answer could have so many different connotations
yeah,
if you don't know that you know the context of what, how it was sent, you know.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't mean it like that, you know.
yeah.
I mean, we're in the day and age where if someone capitalizes everything, it means they're yelling. I mean,
Shouting.
come on. You know, no, like, you know, it,
I know.
I mean, that's at least the good thing about emojis, is at least you throw an emoji in there, you know what the mood is,
I was
you
going to
know?
say that's why we have emojis, because they
Yeah.
kind of support what we're trying to write, as if writing, you know, we
Yeah.
can't write in a way that it conveys how we're feeling. So we need an emoji.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely odd, but
Yeah.
I think the big thing that I want people to pull from this is what you had said, um, not too long ago. We'd said it a couple times, but it's, you know, don't take it personally.
Mm.
Um, understand that criticism are going to happen. Be prepared for them, and know. And I've said this on so many episodes. Know that you're not alone. They're especially if you're feeling like you're getting inundated with negativity from a group or whatever. Even if you don't want to leave that group, especially once you're in there for a little while, you'll know the people that are nasty, but you also know the people that are helpful.
Yeah.
And it's just like in real life. You want to surround yourself with the people that are going to be helpful but kind. And I would say the same thing for social media. You want to maybe become, have a group message with them, message them, separately or whatever, DM them depending on your platform, and send them a private message and maybe get feedback that way. So it's something. The most important thing is to just understand that it's not about you. It's a proper criticism is not about you. It's about your business. It's about your product, more importantly. And if it's coming off as anything other than that, then just ignore it. And I think that's the best thing that you can do, both for your business as well as for your mental health, your emotional health, is to, again, just try your best to not take it personally.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And also don't dwell on it, just
Right.
move on, because you've got things to do. You've got your business to run.
Yeah. It's a task on your to-do list, get the criticism. What can you take from it? And that's it. And then move on.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, this has been another great mastermind, Nuria. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, please consider subscribing or following to the podcast, and maybe even leave us a review and let us know what you thought. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Oh, good, you're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.